Hey guys, we're in the shed today. Had the patrol for a few weeks now and haven't had a chance to get around to putting the Anderson plug to charge into our new camper. I've gone ahead, pulled the battery and the battery tray out and give ourselves a bit more room. This is the gear we're using today. Got our tubing. I'm going to be running a 3 BNS and some 5-6 BNS for the Anderson connections. Running a bigger cable to make sure we don't get much voltage drop to the back. We've got obviously the probably 5 and a bit meter run for the patrol, and then the battery is right at the back of the camper, so we're going to be running right out to 10 meters out to the back of the camper here. So even the 25mm squared is probably a bit undersized for the job, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see how we go. I had a look at the job and where I want to run the cables. We've also putting in the SBI12 isolator. Picked out a spot down here beside the battery, and going to run cable up along the side here and then down in under the brakes, the brake booster. Having a look at that, it's going to be easier to access all of that if I pull out the inliner, make sure I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to get on that just now. Hopefully all of these plastic clips come out pretty easy. So we've got the inner liner out, a couple of hidden ones, I guess, some clips in behind here that get up underneath. There's also one hidden up under the side step. Need to come in from underneath, get that out, the mud flush out, the inner liner out. But that's going to give us plenty of room to see where we're going, and aiming to get down into that chassis rail down in there with the cable. That's the plan at the moment. We'll see how that looks. Down in the SBI12, there is an existing hole down there that I'm going to straddle, and there is also a nice earthing point built in there. It goes through the floor. It's a welded piece, pre-existing bracket, and it comes out nice and easy. Going to need a washer though, make sure it gets good contact. The battery side of the feed comes in on this side, on the front edge, and I'm going to run the auxiliary feed off the back. Also got our blue wire here, which you can use to hook up an LED to get status info off this thing. But for the purposes of my build, I'm going to hook that up to a fuse tap, get an ignition signal so that it so we can leave all of the existing alternator control in place, and it'll automatically disconnect when the ignition's turned off. So for this job, I've got an assortment of 25 and 16mm plugs. Also got 6mm eyelets, 8 and 10mm. Most of the battery stuff at the moment, and the breaker I'm using is only 6mm, but I know that the SB12 has larger eyelets, so make sure I get a good collection of both before we get started. Also just crimping using a hydraulic crimper, and using some adhesive waterproof heat shrink. Made up my short leads for the battery to the breaker, front lead to head down to the SBI12. It's important to remember with larger cables, you need to consider how you orientate your lugs so you don't end up with significant twisting in the cable. So line them up, pre-fit them, make sure they're all going to work before you bolt everything down. Now I'm going to actually run this power cable down the left hand side under the fuse box here. I've got a existing wrapped bundle that we can tie onto. pretty tight in here, but we should be able to get some split cord around it and feed that through. So, because we all know that a 50 amp Anderson can only take up to probably a 16mm square lug, I've run the 25 square down to the back and got hold of these reducer butt splice units. So again, we can fit the full 25 on one side. So I managed to get it in there finally. It did require a recut, but I'd rather it fit properly and get as much in there. I'll be able to crimp it down, make a nice neat join. So now I'm going to shrink down to the 16 square mil. Got those two cables joined up now, and some waterproof heat shrink. Go. I wanted to make sure that it actually reaches where I need it to go, which will be a bonus. Oh yeah, we should have plenty. So underneath, I've run it in under the brake booster. Attached it in behind these cables. Can't run it through the chassis because it's actually blocked off through there. And then running it following this existing cable run. It's not as protected as I would like. In fact, I really would like to have put it through the chassis, but the only way of doing that would be to actually run it down under the chassis to get it across, and that's going to leave it more exposed than where it is now. We're putting sliders on soon, so it should provide a fair bit of protection for all of this under here. I will be able to get into the chassis at the back, up over the back axle. So there's a, what's that look? There's a nice access hole on the inside, just up in here. So I'm going to run it up through this hole. That'll take it up and over the back wheel, and there's plenty of slots in the back to then pull it out again. Here we go. So we have the cable run to the back. Spent a little bit of time on the back end here trying to figure out where the best place to mount the cable to. It's all well and good, the tyre's not in there at the moment, a spare, but maximising the room in here for the bigger tyres that are coming is important. So I think we've done it right. There's only a little bit of a concern around where it comes out of the chassis there. It's a bit close to the exhaust. I've tied it up to bracket under near the hydraulics there, run it in above this cross member. And then there's a little nook in here which then feeds it in behind the tow bar, and I'm going to loop it around and pop it in just under the rear bar there. That should not encroach anywhere on the spare tyre. maybe a little bit just here. But we've already got that bolt there that's sticking out, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to lose too much space. Anyway, now to get back to the front end and mount everything back in place. Okay, so we've run the SP12. There's the wire for hooking into the ignition source, and earth is hooked in down there, giving it a little bit of rust proof underneath. And I'll do the same where they come through, just here, just to repair the touch up the rust treatment we had done a few weeks ago. Pretty thorough job, must admit. Yeah, prefer not to scratch holes in it. It is what it is. Well, that was quite the marathon. Took me a lot longer than I expected, but then I'm a bit out of practice. It's been a while since I worked on this gear. So we've got the SPI12 installed down the bottom. Got the cabling ready to go. We're just about to put the battery back in. For the positive, as I've showed you, down under the wheel well, through the back of the chassis here. You see it pops up. Pops up just here. Now I've got it running around the bottom of the rear bar. It actually curls under, comes out just here. I ran the negative along the far side, again up under the tow bar, up under the rear bar, and found a really neat M6 stud hanging right there under the above the spare wheel. So as you can see, run the negative off the Anderson across the left side of the bar, in above the tow bar, and then fed it in through a hole in the chassis on the left hand rear. And you'll find these two M6 studs right here on the above the spare tyre. Make sure to scrape back the paint and get a good contact on the body. Gave it a spray of rust coating over the top when I was done. Overall, fairly neat and tidy. It is time to put the spare tyre back in though. So the spare tyre's back in. You can see here there's plenty of room for the cables. Both sides, left and right, are all clear of the spare. Right hand side, plenty of room. And then going over to the left, you can see that the there's no nothing close to catching on that negative, that earth cable. So this is the end product. Battery's back in. You can see the main line coming off the battery terminal. I'm using a 70 amp resettable breaker. Gives you the benefit of being able to turn it off when it's not in use. You can also see the off-road down under bracket that I've used. For those interested in doing it, I found I had to replace the battery tie down because the standard ones were not long enough once you put the bracket on. And also use the spacer nut under there to make sure you've actually got space to bolt your accessories down. Coming off the breaker, you can see main line running down to the SPI12, and then coming off the back of that is our red cable headed down to the back under the fuse box and down under the braking system. Since my last video, I've also hooked up the ARB compressor. Not going to make a video on that one. If you're interested in see how that goes together, check out Happy Go Travel. His channel's got a full rundown, and I pretty much followed most of his instructions.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of the adventures and projects that we bring to you, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can also connect with us on Instagram or on Facebook. Thanks very much.